right? I mean, nobody in America is showing enough etiquette to say criticize the etiquettes of a foreign country. As I was saying, this is uh, on this as a start. So, ciao. D&D, the starters. So, here we go. Sorry for the introduction to make you feel like I'm really not gonna get this. So, what I've been experiencing is like selective blindness. So the things that I do and how they connect really hit in blocks. So I I was just listening to Mia Rodriguez's "Shut Up," and then I it's like it was not to the inspiration of what I was doing next. It was about selective blindness, and then how I got to this one. I'm gonna make this one really good, and then fix everything up. So we got 10 starters. Let everybody, or look at everything that's on the side, and then, wow, I should actually do it where it's at the view. So, alright, I'm trying to do real good for each one. Hero. Sword only is the weapon of kind of what I think of the hero. Like, they're very adolescent, play a huge role in the story. So, where do I begin? So there's gonna be like 5 takes of me attempting to try to say it, this part. So the hero, where do I begin? That seems like a villain way to say it. I'm more imagining these mountains and pines as I go through storms and hiccups to get it where I see this in the escapades of Canada. Canada for some reason. I hear you can't have a bad job in the suburbia of nonsense on the inversion of a false narrative there. Alright, so it's more like, where do I begin? And that's the first one. So number 1 is the option of that. The duelist plays a strong role in the Armenia and the conquest of the undertones of the rule of the duelist commander, which is found in a lot of the etiquettes of the provinces of injustice, where somebody has the altruistic power as somebody as inferior to a high authority. The duelist in its own subjective is only that at a switch of what that is. And to the essentials, the municipalities of the outer forces are not so much to how I would digress into the different builds, but dual weapons, really quick switching, decision makers. This is where duelists can advance to become a duelist commander, a decision maker, as a supervisor of sorts. A violent and intentional origin of personal separation from the violin. Oh, so that part was just an idea of what a segment of the flavor text of what I think a duelist represents. So these numbers in ratios of 100 are kind of ways to see this. So the first fraction is 25, like slash 25 over 50. So I really see that the dualist is retaining a 50 metric of that, and then at certain points of making hard decisions, the dualist is doing 50-50. What I don't see the duelist doing in other moves is anything else in that mechanic. Then we have the archer. Interesting build. A good decision. Oh, we'll go back. The duelist is sacred number will be 23. Archer, 3. Besides 2. So 33, 33, 33 as a percentage for the archer as a sacred weapon, as in a good trajectory in a center, doing things and retaining the center. Then the 50-50 for the switch is a norm on a parry of that. And then the archers, one of the best moves is the reinforcements of the 25, so that there's a 4 of a kind, or a volley, or a castle protect. So a good decision maker as well for dealing with area surroundings, soft, careful, and always, I would say, under the wits of what they have. So maybe 50, over 50, and under fractional 25s. Like 20, 25, 25, the bottom 50 up, and then 33% probability, and then the 25 ratio on its ability. So I think that one is awesome. And I love you too. There'll be another one about later on as a healer, a really good thing. But if it don't hit the value of what's on my field as like a C language, or it's very floored. It's a hard floored existence of how something gets graded. Okay, so I'm continuing. 4, the baller, which is known as the Morning Star or the Gatekeeper. So they have 60 defense, 40 attack. So we can look at those and kind of, those are when I had the inspiration to do it at the beginning. That side defense at 40, and then for that. So defensive build mace and chain, sort of gatekeeper jailer. The thing is that this person does things for a reason, that it has a lot of motive to not. For some reason, to not do something for a keep, so a position of unnecessary, sometimes. Still a reward, not a total red flag. We have the Berserker, it's an A45, and an A55, which is a strong dual cleaver. So somebody taking a percentage fragment on a double claim, and then using that in a form of progenitus to that, which has been an evil. I mean, gaining a lot of strength to do an attack to retain a defensive measure for that. This is one of them, a Berserker. I really find the romance created in the Berserk anime and the weapons. So for an item to be an item, thank you. Then it's dot item. So that's how I see that. So it's fairly simple. Then we have the Thief, number 6. Previous number 5. Uses a short sword, dagger, lucidity, and weakness. And then the challenge by the 7-4 word was of value in that, and that was kind of changed. That is derailed me. Like, it would be thieving the honor of that, or that's kind of what I saw. anyways, short sword is representative of the thief of not being quite able to do it in opposition to the next number. Then dagger is the thief in itself. Then the lucidity and weakness. The weakness that I find in thieves is that the lower defense to their necessity to attack really makes it sparring, or that they're clever, and that the only opposition to that is the authority on that, which can be seen as a material of technique that I'm not proving. I like this part though. The play, 0 defense to do something for 100 attack. So all or nothing, everything is worth it, nothing to lose, and then 100 defense and 0 attack. And now there's not such a thing as whistle blowing in a format of what you say by the 10, because that evidence to that concern is like sacrilege of what you're throwing away, and you're just wrong. You just run your mouth too much, I think. I would love somebody to really say that to me. Alright, we're going to go back here and we're going to talk about KPI for a second. Alright, key performance indicators are the critical key indicators of progress towards intended results. KPI provides a focus for strategy and operation. So I was making a claim that proving a point of targeting during a case, let's say that a case is running. If all your family is still a registered business, so those things and those kind of places that you put that, and for all those things that I said, I mean, we can't have a person like this because the inferiority norms on the power of the guardian. So the power of the guardian as a third character on the control of justice, that the ownership on the block in chronological order, that in enforcement and then being a commander and making sure that my laws are reinforced and in the order that they're done. So pretty much somebody on the east side of town is dishonored because Joe Biden refuses to have the Air Force appear just to do net flying around Ukraine. I mean, as a law plane, just flying around to just take a hit or see if somebody shoots you fixes the situation. Later, I will show the figurine of the landscape that, from what I see, which is not complicated, just to have people fly there to see what the confidence is of who finds that personal at such site. But putting yourself, so that the president was in the military, except was a commissioned officer and looking to have a notoriety of those, and that the military wants to be its own state. Because if I was like, hey, I'm this, and I don't want to be interjected by political coining, and I want to know who I'm mad at, then am I mad at politics, or am I mad at the military? Is anybody flying there? Here's a few things on, like, the highest supreme rulers, is that people want India to think that India wants to take a carrier that would be able to bypass a nuclear, like, we would allow one shot for you to do it in this trust. And then we'll take, because we give you the trust of having this here, it's like, we wouldn't do anything to you, so why would we show that these are like words like regulations that push to the inferior? Like, I can't say regulations because I'm just Darian and I'm a nobody. So I don't put the animacy of what I'm not in front of there. So I put that there to allow their carrier to pass into Lake Huron. So we put that there because you get a choice. You get the radius approximate of the allowed, the whatever you wanted, now for confiscation, for pre-measure, just because that is better to have that relationship, to think that they would want to, on a said plane. Which then, if so, then would, let's say, given a specific amount of gas, we'll have the Air Force go, go the opposing direction, so east instead of the west jet. And excuse my stomach, we'll go east, which will take a direction through Ukraine and do net flying, which is just doing performances in the air, because the propaganda that supreme leader is having in that area represents the 1 to 10 storyline. So we'll have them fly east, land in India, and then have 23, the duelist commander, or the India admiral, a female, be operating and from remotely as a country in that location. And then this is what will happen as well. So if you do that, then the possible idea of a trade for the military state from a separation of that by that amount would set it up pretty well. So I just want to see what happens, why somebody said that, and then why people seem so slow on that. And then pretty much I need the war to not be, as in the secondary war based on the Middle Eastern War has no influence and motive on the actual body and welcomeness of that. And that I don't know what happened, and whatever, for the point that I'm talking right now, that is a thing. You also cannot take my ideas, because once they are mine, I mean, it can be reiterated, but it's not the same. It's indexed, as in it's a fact that I am a person that said this. So chronologically, I think I'm smart enough to be able to defend my own business, and it is a registered business. So you have to fight that, and by the mediums, it would have to fight a lot of that stuff. A lot of issues we're having is sapping the bandwidth of our neck, so the motion and the frequency of what we're saying at the same time has a pulley in sources. Intellectual property is protected at the source, so real time, that's kind of an inconvenience on the separatist of different ideas, of different factions. Well, there was other concerns on the military, of how things were going, and that is the only point necessary. So the law state military's rules is 1-to-1, so it's not like I can kill somebody with a missile if they, like, shot me with a bullet. You know what I mean? So, so the rules for the most respectful generals is that you can't do that. And that's why I said, hey, if you're in your means of authority, nothing is beyond the measure of your word, because your obligatory is to protect, you're defending the value of it. You're not composing different values at a state of your presentation, whether you get to kill people or not. So a chain effect is like playing a game. So if somebody were to do something that was nuclear, let's say you disrespected the mother of India, and you chose in response to conjunction to let character run, and then you tried to bomb India sourced, then that one could do something within that radius. In exchange, a 1-to-1 exchange. So that's kind of where the deal is going at best for stabilization, I feel. What's not going to happen is you can't have a bystander as a supreme leader. So it's going to have to be separated as a military general state, as a battlefield testing site, and then, yeah. So the second motivated countries are uninterested in doing anything. So after all that, they just decided to wait. Nah, they decided to give passports. And then conservatives or the Dutch didn't know what to do, where to get that, so they stayed there and then waited for reinforcements. That's where that's at. Hi, I still exist. You still don't want my life, I'll tell you that much. Oh, you want it, but you do not want it. Night Paladin. So this was a cross-reference where I wanted to bring chest into this. So night was going to be dark, Paladin light. And give an example of whistleblowing beyond your neurological trauma to the number 30 or 10. When something is in your existence, how is that not your bipartisan to alienating an opinion based on punctual facts? When do you ever get to associate yourself as the invasive of somebody's being, all around them, from frequencies, sound, language, or anything else? All the mediums of your technique, by your methodist, doesn't contrive the rights or the honors of a human being. And you're bipartisan to the claim of what crimes is not the order of the syndicate of how somebody is guilty at that point. You're never a convey on influence by the time at rest, at midturn, to the sea, which will be later explained by me for you to try to prove your point. So, sworn to protect the being of everything. So later on, we're going to talk about the whole figure of each one, and we're going to look at those in peace times and take. So, easy example, America, the amendments, and things. So, you can't break those things, or you can't break human rights. Or you're going to have to pick your main center of what you're basing every action that you do as a representative of something. Like law. There's law. there's more law centered on what you would think, even though fractional to something. So law will be protecting law, but you have law on your body. So there's nothing saying that you are pervasive from law. A prisoner of war can be somebody who's evaded law. That's your best bet. So it's like so methodical what you think is so like old fashioned, like dumbfounded war. Which it is, but it can be done. The main issue I'm having is with all the mechanisms that are not animated to the body, like killbots and frequencies and microwave stuff and things that I will see, and then the challenge of what's acceptable. IBM is a problem, Nano is a problem, KPI is a name of something. Sometimes it's more of like where I wouldn't put myself but that avenue of where said character, not Denzel Washington birthday, but animated General Denzel Washington takes claim on superficience, and his image can be seen depicted as the green-eyed blonde, like the blonde fox, or I don't know what they call him. Now we have the healer, a relative perspective support, all from me. A variable event, so you see the crest on there, and then like this, from the 0 defense to 100% HP to 0 attack to 50. So there's nothing to defend and there's nothing to attack. The all healer, very powerful. I have also things like problems like the association to my feelers or my skin isn't like associated to where I am presently. So the heater is on for like moments. So we're later on under this one, under title, underline, there'll be a section explaining which each and every one was. Let's do a double check to make sure everything is going good. Relative perspective support. So there are some flaws in an attempted healer on situation, and things pushing injunction to hypothermia. Reminder that hypothermia is the challenge to what is the state? What is the locomotive of the body retaining heat? Note to self on that to create that body to what would be supporting the main temperature, and what temperature does a temperature below that, by that talking between the temperatures of 65 and 74. So here's kind of the issues at said location. There's 3 different types of refrigerators that we don't all know about. Thermal, electric, very quiet, and then we have insulation, like that. Let's say if there's a large wide pane glass, what is the temperature of the pull of the outerior on the pull of glass? Probably to the center of the contact of what the glass is by that glass. So let's say if it was 40 degrees outside and 65 degrees out in your room, whether that was the contact with what you had assumed, then it would be 52.5. So so it would have been 52.5 degrees on that side on the push by the time that it could expand on the contact of that. So what is the direction of the length to the area, to the expansion of the gradient of the number 65? to the number 52.5 on contact with the glass. Probably pretty cold. 32 is the state of freezing. So 32 degrees is freezing. So if it was 32 degrees, without a doubt, you would freeze to death. Okay, so we're going to take 32 degrees. Then if 32 degrees was times that and you weren't freezing, then so retaining a flux. So that kind of means that you're meant to be very warm. So what would be, so from my analysis, 7 degrees is a snare of your body being unable to interpret whether something is positive or not. It's not room temperature. It's like, let's say room temperature is the theme between the positive and minus, and which I really think is really close to 7. So 71, I think, is the positive unassociation to not being on the switch. So hypothermia is a state of being. So there's a switch. Some people have this, will claim that they're better than this, and some people were created in different climates and have different DNA supporting different temperatures. I mean, there's different stuff for different things, but at that point, we're gonna say for a, like, for myself, a, like, Laos Dutch person, white in between, kind of like that, then it's gonna be 70, I bet. I mean, you're used to temperatures like that, a bit babyish. But what I don't see there is kind of the contrast. I guess it is different for some. And those receptors to the contact to the state of hypothermia is the skin. So we'd be testing who has different skin. Not who's more of a baby and who is less of a baby. And there's also another thing. Your skin to the temperature is a reactive to what you do. So if you run a command that says you don't want to do anything because you heard something, and you heard something, and it was something that you wanted to do, and you were listening to it on KPI, and you chose not to do anything, then at that moment, you would have, at that chain, caused yourself a negative counter on your life source for being dumb and doing nothing. The next one, number 9, previous number 8, Challenger Champion Vice. So there's situations where the altruistic chains of that to remedy take on a sword in Vice in armor, and this is one of my favorite numbers, and a number that I aspire to achieve. In comparison to how I would honor myself in my own faction, this would be a brigader or a groundskeeper. So the Challenger Champion Vice has a destruction power control, because whatever their retention to their number, it's a strong keep and has power in that curvature. So there's like demands, or there are values, and they're vindicated by law, and is similar to an autocracy, which is what is best and what is most military strong is correct. But it's this opposing thing on these substrates of how this communication, which we're going to talk about later on through certificates that we will have on our body. So not jargon that, that I can't do the same substrating or paracording on the switch of my education. So we're gonna take some quick courses to take specialties and move forward with those. And I highly recommend, in contrast on the builds, to take on some of the certificates and give your best conclusion to what is going on. This is where whatever is happening to why the authority on the political coining of the vice, like not Sauron, but which one is the one that has this? What is that one? You know, like a one ring to rule them all kind of thing. Is why, I mean, you know that this person retains the ruby of power, because why is convenient to that somebody had asked for that to achieve something in that within it. So, an interesting thing. You don't think that this is like kinetic to the communication that. So, we'll talk about that part later. It's not something that's not participant in a real certificate in education. That's what kind of the surface question is. I will be back later on to tell you what that certificate is. Then we have the king, or the tree king, benevolence and truth and relativity. 100 to 100. I mean, it is everything. It's profound. It's the emerald of life. It's everything that is already itself. That is. It's like a point almost that can be touched. That's a powerful one. Truth. It's an energy. It's there. It doesn't hurt. There was a nice word to say relativity. That was a Easter egg on how the vice is sort of like, is the vice a villain to the great tree and is attempting to cut it down, or like how does each player play a role in this block? Very cool. I took a lot of words out of the king, like the stature of lesser kings. I mean, there's a lot of ways to feel like a king with limited things that would run. So that's kind of that relativity and that mothering of how that happens to a vice is not applicable and acceptable by said vice. Me, I do not approve. So that was really good, and I really like the number that's like, it's not 100D or 100 attack, it's just 100 of 100. That is a very benevolent king. Alright, so I had gotten a thing where somebody had meandered that they were security effective. So if for whatever rhyme or reason of what I think that the format should be, that this like effective updating to cookie contact via that travel is not like auspicious to this super technocracy of getting to far their composure. It's that I'm not binding my being to that. This hardware is my computer. So we can go that this is my computer and those things are that. So we're taking a moment later on to pause all those things. So updating is no longer going to be based on updating the external parts within that. To update, it's going to have to be to what is like the local of storage of that computer, and then the body of that function via the device manager and the location of the center in that cloud of that thing. Hey, that you tried to describe the Pirate Bay's pretend group or whatever. That was embarrassing. That was pathetic. That is a thing. I'm just gonna take that, turn it into a class, and laugh at how necessary it is for me to stay stature. I know that there is data that goes out that disconnects the idea of being, and that I'm here, that I'm my local storage, and that my mind is sellable. I feel that. So whether I can get a full heal on ground control for just a pause, or the adaptive of the standard of the palette, and reverse the Omicron as a positive thing, post-centering the dispute, then that's kind of it. What I see is kind of like a weird orange SAR blood drop, stasis snare kind of thing. I think it's more of like a hold or a sneak preview on like issues that are always there. I don't know why. Well, it's not so bad. It's just kind of. It's like a class. It could be like, hey, if you got an unhealthy heart, that's just kind of you right there. I think that would have happened either way. Or the challenges from that saga may have pushed those destinies a bit farther. Anyways, we're gonna take a stop. Or see all those things that run, that go there. No, there are things that are really connected to the association of the real-time cookies of how you're moving. And there's even this thing that goes like this, and a lot of software in Neuro is based on KPI, and nobody in any traditional of proving their occupation, like proving the action, like no action service is what I require, that you do not need to prove your action on the alias of your KPI, like closing a door. I'll get rid of that part because that was embarrassing. But I gotta say, from the embarrassment of looking at that, the closure of that was just because there was a bad part that I did not like to see. But from the selective bias, my right eye looks at the KPI, the left one at the D&D, and then there's a connection right there to a minuscule right there, a mouse, closing that, a burn, a frisk, a fritz, I would say, and then that stops. That is the concept. I really think that I'm close to it, and it's the HPID, and that there's something running updates on you, and you're not a part of your body. That's kind of what we're hoping to slow down, I hope. The feed on my Xfinity modem is, direct pulls, and at work, direct pulls of what I'm thinking in real time. There's no means of acceptance that you can take the real functions of somebody's neurons at real time and there's really, if I do this, I can prove that there is no such thing as superpowers, because there are mediums to the method of this. And that nobody has the medium of how it's being justiced. You wouldn't be able to, talk to your favorite YouTubers. Nothing would connect you to this. It's like a virus inside of it that's like all centering you to something. That's my closest guess, or it's energy, that my state of being is transferred to energy. Like a location spot, which maybe, like in my game, there's real circlets of places you can go. So it has to be explainable. There are no loose ends. That's the challenge. And then, thank you everybody for listening to my presentation. And yes, this is copyrighted by Fellow Family. And so are the indexes. So you can use them, but you can't really take the essence that you had done that because of that, and that you had slewed it. So keep that in mind. But I keep safe. I use algorithms, things that already exist, ROI, ratios, things that I do not own, and code, stuff like that. But there is a theme on my own style. Alright, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching.